Just after 8 a.m., Judge Elanora Washington left her small, tidy home and headed to the Charleston Federal Courthouse. The rising sun reflected off a single silver strand as she straightened her plain navy blazer, well-worn yet perfectly pressed. At 70, her back curved slightly from decades of military duty, but her movement was steady and intent. She carried only a scuffed leather portfolio in hands marked by age and service. A narrow chain disappeared beneath her collar. Her dog tags never removed. Elanora never wore her robe outside chambers. 30 years in the Army, retiring as a colonel, had trained her to enter buildings quietly, study everything, and stay alert. The habit kept her alive in Vietnam and helped her earn a law degree in her 50s, a career shift many called impossible. Yet this morning she was greeted as neither veteran nor judge, just another older black woman, entering a place where power rarely welcomes people who look like her. As security Deputy Hank Riker, a bailiff known for a hard edge, eyeballed her as she neared the metal detector. He didn't recognize her. At worst, didn't care to. Something about her calm, assured stance irritated him. "Ma'am," he barked, folding thick arms. "Step aside." Elanora stopped, face unreadable after a lifetime of tense encounters. "Is there an issue, officer?" Riker scanned her from hair to shoes, then muttered, "No ID showing. Can't stroll in here like that." She slipped a badge from her blazer. It glinted under the lights. Riker barely glanced at it before pocketing it. "I'll need that back," she said, voice low but firm, the same tone she'd once used to brief troops. He moved closer. "In a hurry, Grandma." The word stung like an open slap. A younger guard near the scanner looked away. "I need to reach a courtroom," Elanora stated, standing as tall as her spine allowed. "Then you'll follow my process," Riker snapped. "Random check. This way." His heavy grip on her arm guided her to a windowless screening room. One steel chair sat under harsh light. Clippers and scanners lay on a table. "I don't consent," she declared. "You have no cause. You're acting suspicious," he retorted. "Sit." When she stayed still, 2 officers entered. One seized her wrist. The other held the chair. "I want your names," she demanded. Riker grabbed the clippers. "Protocol. You could hide something in that silver mop." Her hair, grown long after retirement as a sign of freedom from military buzz cuts, met cold metal. Silver curls fell. She uttered no cry. 30 years in uniform had taught her endurance. She watched strands drop, dignity trimmed away, expression blank. Should have shown respect. Riker sneered, brushing hair from his sleeve. "You'll regret this," she said evenly. He leaned in. "People like you always claim that." He opened the door. "Courtrooms that way." She retrieved her badge without a word and walked out. Pace measured, face calm. Inside, her chest blazed with purpose, hotter than anger, deeper than shame. The corridor's hush pressed down. The clerks averted their eyes. Beyond double doors, voices rumbled. Today's docket featured a policeman's conduct hearing on last year's protest. Normally she'd enter from chambers, robe waiting. Not today. She paused, inhaled as she'd learned in combat meditation, and swung both doors wide. Conversation froze. Footsteps echoed as she crossed marble toward the bench. Lawyers, reporters, plaintiffs. Defendants all stared, first at confusion, then dawning realization. The woman mishandled minutes ago was the judge. Elanora slipped on her robe, each motion deliberate, cloth settling like an old uniform. She met Riker's eyes where he stood rigid at a side door. He paled. "Clerk," she asked, voice steady, "is the docket ready?" "Why, yes, Your Honor." "Call the First Matter, United States v. Charleston Police Department," she announced, proceeding as though nothing had happened. "Charges of power abuse, excessive force, civil rights violations. Witness 1, an officer who'd shoved an elderly veteran at a protest. Breaking ribs." Elanora listened, made notes, asked no questions yet. In peripheral vision, she noticed Riker edging toward the rear, fingers twitching. After witness 2, she declared a recess. The room emptied quietly, only her clerk to officers. And Riker remained. She fixed him with a hard stare. "Deputy Riker," she said, voice sharp. Double quotes. "Yes, Your Honor," he answered, stepping forward like a man to the ledge. "State your name." "Hank Riker." "Years of service?" 14. "And how many women have you mistreated in that screening room?" She tapped her pen. He blanched. "Your Honor, that's not my question." "I'm not sure." 12, she supplied, tone precise. 12 formal complaints, all buried under procedure. He glanced around. Aid never came. You didn't know who I was. She continued, and that's exactly the problem. You saw an older black woman and decided to belittle, to humiliate, to shave for sport. Silence thickened. Officers, take Deputy Riker into custody. Charges will follow. Cuffs clicked. You can't do this, he shouted. She already had doc court resumed. During a short break, an intern, Megan, approached. I saw everything, she whispered. I was afraid to speak. Thank you, Elanora replied softly. Speaking now matters. I didn't stop it, no. But you're talking. That's more than most. Next witness, Howard Briggs, a black father whose teen was injured by police. He described begging for paramedics, ignored. Elanora, knowing the weight of silence, listened without interrupting. That evening, she examined her reflection, uneven patches where silver once crowned. In Vietnam, she'd worn military short hair, enduring discrimination for race and gender. Later, she'd grown it out in retirement, symbolizing freedom. Now it was shorn again, not by choice, but by force. Determination stared back brighter than before. Next morning, rain pelted the courthouse. Word of yesterday spread, galleries filled with reporters and civil rights lawyers. When a defense attorney stood, Your Honor, due to recent events, the arrest of Deputy Riker, the court may appear biased. You imply I cannot remain impartial because I was publicly assaulted, she asked. Stepping forward, perception of bias, Your Honor. I was targeted not for actions, but for identity and elderly black woman presumed powerless. My response, I took this bench and followed every rule. She paused. Real bias is a man shaving a woman's hair without cause. Real bias is 12 ignored complaints. We proceed. I will not recuse. Later, former employee Denise Talley testified that Riker's complaints were systematically buried, often with judge's consent. On the hearing's final day, rain still fell. The room overflowed. Elanora entered, halted before the bench, removed her robe, folded it, laid it across the chair, standing simply as a citizen who had served 30 years in uniform. Before becoming a judge, I've held this title, worn this robe, and too often kept quiet. Today I'm done. She turned to the gallery. This court finds Deputy Hank Riker guilty of abuse of power, civil rights violations, official misconduct. Further, I order a review of every complaint under his name and investigation of anyone who suppressed them. She raised a folder, effective immediately. The Washington mandate comprehensive anti-bias training, psychological screening, regular evaluations. Zero tolerance for discrimination will apply to all bailiffs, marshals, and staff in this jurisdiction. I'll push it to the circuit, to the judiciary, to the Senate if needed. Officers opened the side door. Riker entered in cuffs, no uniform. Mr. Riker, she said, calm yet piercing. You spent a career deciding who deserved dignity. You believed the badge made you untouchable. Today, the law disagrees. She nodded for removal. Months later, Judge Washington stood before a middle school class, silver hair sprouting anew. A student asked, Do you still believe in the system? I don't trust what it was, she answered, but I believe in what it can become. Justice is not only punishment, it's refusing to shrink when the world demands silence. If this story moved you, share it and comment your thoughts on respect and service. Justice begins with us together. The courthouse buzzed for days. News of Judge Elanora Washington's experience spread far beyond Charleston. Editorials were written, interviews requested, civil rights groups issued statements. But Judge Washington remained silent, at least. In public, inside the courtroom, her voice remained steady, her rulings clear. She had never sought the spotlight. Only Justice Dodd in the following weeks. The case at hand, the Charleston Police Department misconduct trial, continued under her careful oversight. Testimonies piled up. Videos were shown. Officers took the stand. Families testified about injuries, lost trust, and a system they once believed in but now feared. Elanora listened to every word. Her questions were never accusatory, but always direct. She pressed for clarity, not drama. Some attorneys underestimated her at first until she dissected their arguments with surgical precision. But it wasn't just the trial that was shifting. The Washington mandate, as it came to be known, had already begun to make waves. Training seminars were scheduled. Courthouse staff underwent evaluations. Several officials quietly stepped down. Others were suspended pending investigation. One afternoon, Elanora called for a special session closed to the public, but attended by every courthouse employee. She stood alone at the podium, not in robes, but in a plain black suit. "I won't be speaking long," she began, "but I want to make one thing clear. This building does not belong to fear. It does not belong to prejudice, nor to those who think uniforms excuse cruelty." She looked around the room. "From this point forward, I expect every person in this courthouse to understand what justice really means. It's not about control. It's not about intimidation. It's about service equal and honest." She left the room without applause, but her words stayed. The next day, a new set of jurors filed in. One older man paused at the courtroom entrance, unsure. Elanora noticed. She gave a brief nod. He straightened his shoulders and stepped forward. Outside the courtroom, protesters continued gathering, not in anger alone, but in solidarity. Posters read, "Respect her gavel. Justice has a name, and Washington stands for us all." Many were veterans, others were students. Some had never stepped inside a courthouse before, but now they felt like they belonged. Back inside, a key witness took the stand. Captain Luis Hernandez, a decorated officer with over 20 years in the department. Unlike others, he didn't deflect. "Your Honor," he began, "what happened to you should never have happened. But it did, and it's part of a pattern we've ignored too long." He went on to detail how informal rules, silent biases, and unofficial cultures within the department enabled officers like Riker. His testimony rattled the room. "Are you afraid of repercussions, Captain?" Elanora asked gently. "I'm afraid of what happens if I don't speak," he replied. Later that evening, she walked the courthouse halls alone, as she often did. Her reflection caught in the dark glass of a window, the silver growth on her scalp now more even. Behind her, the sound of a broom, a janitor sweeping the marble floors. She turned. "Good evening, Judge," he said with a small nod. "Good evening," she replied, smiling. It was a rare moment of softness. By the end of the third week, the trial neared conclusion. The gallery remained packed. Reporters filed. Daily stories. Social media dubbed her the Iron Gavel. But Judge Washington rejected labels. She wasn't a symbol. She was a civil servant. One with scars, but also with standards. During closing arguments, the defense tried once more to paint the misconduct as isolated individual bad actors, not systemic failure. Elanora interrupted. "Only once. Counselor, are you suggesting that 12 separate complaints, ignored over years, amount to coincidence?" The attorney stammered. "Not exactly, Your Honor." She didn't press further. She didn't need to. The jury delivered its verdict 2 days later, guilty on all major counts: abuse of authority, civil rights violations, failure to protect. The courtroom sat in silence as the verdict was read. Then, slowly, quietly, people began to nod. As the room cleared, Elanora remained at the bench for a long moment. She glanced at the empty seat where Riker had once stood. Then she looked at her clerk. "Prepare a statement," she said. "We'll release it tomorrow." That night, in her chambers, she finished handwriting the final section of the Washington mandate. At the bottom, she signed her name, then dated it. Elanora M. Washington, July 2nd, 2025. A soft knock came. "Megan," the intern, peeked in. "I thought you might still be here." "I usually am," Elanora said with a small smile. Megan hesitated. "May I ask something?" "Of course." "What keeps you going?" the intern asked. Elanora paused, then replied, "The promise I made when I first put on the uniform, and again when I first sat at this bench, that I wouldn't leave people behind." Megan nodded. "I think you're keeping it." After she left, Elanora looked back at her desk. Papers, reports, a framed photo of her younger self in uniform. In the mirror behind her, she saw not just a judge or a veteran, but a woman standing firm when everything told her to fall back. The gavel rested beside her hand, and she was not done.